What is up, guys? In today's video, we're going to be talking about the mobility we have in Fortnite Chapter 7 Season 2 and how you can use these items to dominate fights. As always, if you guys do enjoy this video, find it helpful, informative, or interesting, remember to give it a like, subscribe if you like to see more, comment down below which mobility item is your favorite this season, and if you guys would like to use my code in the shop when getting anything, it is EvolveJake, just like my channel name is, and it is underneath the webcam at all times. So currently in the loot pool, we have two main mobility items, the Overdrive grenades and the 7 power gloves, but there is also an exotic pistol that can be used as mobility, but this may be removed from the loot pool as time goes on. And then we also have the Flowberry mist grenade. So the Overdrive grenades work very similar to shockwave grenades. When thrown, it basically just sends everything away from it. So to go forward, you want the grenade to be behind you as it goes off, and you want to be moving forward. And the easiest way to make this happen consistently is just to look down while throwing this item and then just walk forward as you throw it. And if you look down as you're throwing it and just continue to walk forward or continue to run forward, then it will be behind you as it ends up going off. And jumping as this grenade goes off will give you a different arc and allow you to go further. And then kind of the way to get the most distance is going to be sprint jumping. So it kind of mimics your regular movement, or the movement speed you have when the nade goes off matters in terms of how far you go and how fast you go. So the way to get the furthest is to be sprint jumping as it goes off. If you're just like walking without jumping, you won't go quite as high. And if you're standing still or, not walking very quickly, then you won't go as far. And one of the main differences between the Overdrive grenades and shockwaves is that you don't break through structures when using these Overdrive grenades, so you're a bit more limited on how you can play with it. You can't just go into a building and then break through if there happens to be somebody hiding in there, and then you also can't use this offensively to go through walls like how you could shockwaves, which is something that I enjoyed doing quite a bit. Another difference between these Overdrive grenades and shockwaves is that you get an Overdrive effect, which gives you boosted movement speed for a period of time, as well as unlimited stamina. And then you also get like somewhat reduced gravity for a period of time. Your jump is a little more floaty, but it's not as extreme as like the Flowberry effect. And this low gravity effect after you land doesn't actually make you immune to fall damage. So the initial use of the Overdrive grenade does make you immune to fall damage, but once you land, you can take fall damage while you still have the Overdrive effect active. And the main kind of time you would notice this, or this would happen, is if you like bunny hop after landing, which is something I enjoy doing. If you kind of jump after you land with this item, you'll usually carry your momentum forward with a bunny hop if you time that properly. But you need to be careful about doing this on like high structures like mountains. If you're going downhill and you do that bunny hop, then you may end up getting eliminated by fall damage because you only are immune until you hit the ground after that initial use. Once you hit the ground, fall damage is fair game again. These 7 power gloves, I think, are going to be most people's favorite mobility item this season because you get 20 uses from a single inventory slot, and it's also pretty simple to use. So for your main attack or your dash, you'll hit your shoot button and then press the direction you want to go. And the main thing that kind of confuses players with this item is that a lot of items we had like this in the past, you just kind of looked where you wanted to go. But with this item, you need to be pressing the direction you want to go. So on controller, this will be your left analog stick. If you're pressing it forward, you go forward. If you press it backwards, you go backwards. Even if you're looking forward and walking forward as you do the attack, if you're pressing back on your left stick, you'll go backwards. And then side to side is the same thing. If you're on mouse or keyboard, this will be your WASD buttons. And so that is the main kind of struggle that I think some people have with this item, is that is kind of flipped from most mobility items, but once you get used to it, it is fairly simple. And then there also is an uppercut ability that you can activate by hitting your aim down sight button, and this will send you pretty much just straight up. And this is very useful in fights because you just hit one single button and then you're going up. You can look straight up with the regular attack and you'll actually go higher than the uppercut will send you. But the fact that you can be looking exactly where you want to look and not have to worry about that, and you just press a single button on the uppercut, makes it very good for getting verticality easily, and makes it very useful in fights because you can just keep your attention trained on the enemy. And not only is this good traversal and fighting mobility, but it's also the melee aspect of these gloves is something that is used a lot in fights this season to hit enemies. And a common combo with this is going to be to, when you're pushing somebody, to do a ground pound attack by hitting your shoot button and looking down on the enemy while you're in air. And then once you hit that ground pound attack, you immediately do an uppercut, and then you follow that uppercut up with a shot from your shotgun. So you'll do ground pound, uppercut, shotgun, and oftentimes the enemy will take so much damage that will just probably be the elimination there, especially if you had them weak going into that situation. If you hit like 100 mid-range damage on somebody, and then you kind of throw your overdrive grenade to push them, and then kind of ground pound, uppercut, shotgun, you do so much damage so quick. So that is going to be something that is very useful, but just the uppercut in general is spammed a lot in fights this season. And in a lot of situations, fights kind of feel like you either uppercut the enemy or they uppercut you. So one of the main ways to avoid this is just to be the person initiating it first, unfortunately. And you can combine these gloves with other forms of mobility. So like the fizz effect from the Flowberry Mist Grenade, or the Overdrive Grenade's kind of low gravity effect that I talk about before. If you have either of those active, you will kind of go further with these gloves. And if someone has the Overdrive effect, gets uppercutted, they will actually go incredibly high into the air. So if you've seen that happen this season, it's from them having the Overdrive effect. And you can actually use this to your advantage, because a lot of times enemies will push you with Overdrive grenades, and they might get completely caught off guard by you uppercutting them and sending them super high into the sky. And another kind of trick with this is if you're sliding when you uppercut somebody, you won't get sent into the air with them. And so you can kind of use that to create distance, especially like I said, if somebody is overdrive nading on you because you're weak. If you slide into an uppercut on them, you'll send them super high. You won't go up into the air, and that might be a way for you to kind of create some distance or create some time for yourself to heal if needed. And sometimes these gloves are sold in the rivalry stations for 50 coins. So if you are having a hard time getting them or finding them from looting, you want to be checking those rivalry stations. And there's rivalry stations all over the map. And so it shouldn't be that hard to come across one of these stations that's selling them. Another item that you can get from the rivalry stations that's going to be mobility is the exotic hyperburst pistol. And this is actually a really good mobility item currently. And you can purchase it from the rivalry stations for 80 coins. And this is in the loot pool as of the time I'm making this video, but that may be something that changes down the line as Epic kind of swaps out the exotics. And this pistol has a small shockwave effect on the first and last burst of the magazine. So if you keep reloading it in between bursts, or in between shots, you can spam this for mobility. And this is a lot harder to do than the other forms of mobility we have this season, but once you get a feel for it, it's not too bad, but it is kind of weird to get used to. So you kind of need to look behind yourself, shoot the pistol, reload while in air, and then shoot again once you land. And one thing that I like to do is kind of land in a slide and then jump after that slide, and then shoot myself with the pistol, or shoot the ground behind me with the pistol after I've landed from that bunny hop, or like as I'm about to land from that bunny hop. So it's look behind yourself, shoot, reload, land, look behind yourself, shoot, reload, land. And you could just be looking backwards the entire time, but I kind of like to turn my camera while in air and kind of look around me and look in the direction that I'm actually intending to go to make sure there's not, any enemies there or anything. It does seem like if you're sliding when you shockwave yourself with this pistol, it kind of bugs out. So I said I like to land in a slide and then jump, and that is why. I think it would be a lot easier to use consistently if you could just slide and then turn and shoot it. But every time I'm sliding when I use this pistol to shockwave myself, it ends up bugging out. So that's really unfortunate. And as I said, this is in the loot pool right now, and it's probably the best traveling mobility in the game right now, and also a really good weapon in its own right. So this is a very high value item to have because you get a good weapon and mobility in one slot, while you still have room for other mobility items in your loot pool, like maybe the gloves and the overdrive grenades all at the same time. And things can get pretty crazy when you have all that. And then the final thing we're going to talk about quickly is going to be the Flowberry Mist Grenade. This will give you the zero gravity Flowberry effect when you throw it down, and it kind of creates a cloud of area where you get the Flowberry effect. So this is nice to have situationally. It's not really something I like carrying as my healing item, but this can also be purchased from the rivalry station sometimes. And that's kind of the main time I end up using it, is if I'm scuffed for heals at a point in a game where I don't really have access to a vending machine, but there is a rivalry station. At that point, I'll check it and see if I can buy the mist, because there's usually mist or chug splash or even pizza for sale in there. But you can use this mist to combine with the other movement items. So if you missed in overdrive, you're going to go further and have floatier movement. If you missed in glove, you're going to go further and have floatier movement. If you missed and then shockwave pistol, same thing. You're going to go further and kind of float a bit more on every shot. So the mist is a good complementary mobility item, but it doesn't really like, it isn't the greatest mobility on its own, especially for pushing enemies. I think most players still going to prefer the overdrive grenades and the 7 power gloves. That's what most people and myself enjoy carrying. And then I'll add the shockwave pistol in there as well. But as far as pushing goes, I really like having the overdrive grenades. The gloves can work for this too, but it's a bit slower just to push somebody with. And I feel like the enemy has more say in the matter. It's easier for them to counter as you use glove uses. And you might also get to the enemy and then have your gloves on cooldown, which can be a problem because, as I touched on, they're really good for fighting. So I feel like the gloves I look at as more of like a fighting item once I'm good close on the enemy. Maybe some traversal from it, but I don't like using all my glove uses just to travel and then end up in a situation where it's not ready to go in a fight. And then the overdrive grenades, it's good for kind of heat of the moment mobility, but it's not that great of a just traveling mobility item because you'll run out of them very quickly. So that's kind of how I view them. And then the pistol is probably the best traversal mobility. There is also zip lines in the loot pool, but I really don't enjoy using that item. I think it's mostly an item that's probably good in like team game modes for moving the team all together. But also at the same time, the zip line is a terrible item if there happens to be an enemy nearby. And if you're using this to push somebody, they have a lot of say in the matter of whether or not you're pushing them. It's very counterable. And then even if you are just using it to travel, you run the risk of just running into somebody that you didn't know was there and then getting fried and being in a situation where you're down a lot of damage going into a fight in a season where there's so much other mobility that just gets the job done well. So with how many other items there are, zip lines are well on the bottom of my priority list. But that is going to be it for this video. As always, if you guys did find this to be helpful, informative, or interesting, remember to give it a like, subscribe if you would like to see more, and I will see you guys in the next one. Thanks for watching.